What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 183, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and on today's episode, we're talking all about Square Enix and their new multi-platform strategy. More Xbox games seem to be headed to other platforms. We got a big Game Pass update, and Xbox has a new studio. But before we get to all that and more, got to introduce my co-host, returning after his arrest from last week for fighting Phil Spencer. He said, "Phil, I'm not letting you do this to Tango." He went and fought him.
I mean, when the opportunity presents itself and you've got enough money for an airplane flight real quick, you got to go throw some hands. I'm happy to thank you for the bail money. I appreciate that. And we're back in action, but I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, that's the Patreon, man. In case you ever wonder where your Patreon dollars gets to get JamPackSam out of jail.
It's true. It's true. We need to make a tier 4 of bail money or whatever, that like a different tier of some kind of support. But
$20 deal gets us out of jail.
Yeah, happy to get out of jail free card. But I'm very happy to be back. Of course, thank you to our phenomenal co-host that joined last week to fill the shoes, which are not difficult to fill. But hey, I appreciate the backup there, and had a wonderful time. I took a little week of hiatus and had a little bit of rest and relaxation. Wild couple of weeks, but happy to be back in the I'm just hanging out playing video games rotation. It's nice to be back in the flow.
Yeah. You certainly, it was certainly a busy week for you to not be here, but again, thank you, Captain Logan and Ryan Turford, for filling in. We appreciate them. But we're going to talk about today's show. This is Project XTalk. We are live every Thursday right here on youtube.com/Save the Game Media at 7 p.m. Eastern time. All right. I always forget to say that. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Come hang out with us live on YouTube. If you can't catch us live, we post every Friday morning on your favorite audio platform of choice. While you're over there, make sure to drop us that 5-star review. We do appreciate that. And if you want to support us even further, get early access to Save the Game Media audio content, it all in one big feed, and exclusive shows, head over to patreon.com/Save the Game Media. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Lindsay, Nikolai at Night, Cypher, Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, David Hotwright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Alpaca Tom, Lee Navarro, and Silkinit. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. Sam, I haven't talked to you in quite some time about games anyway, so I gotta know, what have you been playing the last few weeks?
Yeah, the last couple of weeks have been, like I said, super busy with real life stuff. Work has been really crazy. So, especially the last week, I really didn't play much of anything the last week. This week, getting back in the action of a little bit of Helldivers 2 thrown in there. I have been playing a game that I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it's called Mullet Mad Jack. Have you heard of this game coming out?
I've only heard of it because our fantasy critic bot keeps updating the score. And I'm like, what is this game and why is it reviewing so well? There's like 4 indie games that came out this week that are like high 80s. And I'm sitting there, I was like, Sam and I, if we had some indie insider, Sam and I could be winning this thing.
Yeah, so I got an email a couple of weeks ago from, I guess it's one of the developers on their team. It wasn't like a press, general email. They were like, "Hey, we feel like this would fit your vibe. Here's a press code. Give it a shot." And so I haven't put out a video on it yet. That might actually be what I do tomorrow. But I've really been enjoying Mullet Mad Jack. It's got kind of like a Hotline Miami first-person shooter feel to it. And it's super fast paced. And the whole concept of it is that you have 10 seconds to get through what is effectively one level of a building, working your way up the building. And so every time you get a kill, you might extend your time in the level by 3 seconds. So it's that constant ticking down time kind of element. And it runs super well on Steam Deck. I played a little bit on my main PC, but really, really good time if you're into that fast paced. Like I said, it's a lot of Hotline Miami for me, but definitely sharing some more thoughts over the next couple of days, but really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I pulled up the Steam page, looking at it right now. Very cool visually. Looks awesome.
Yeah.
What's this? What's this like a iPod he keeps bringing up while he's blasting people?
I doesn't ring a bell for me, but let me tell you, the game moves so fast, I probably missed it by happenstance. But I probably put about maybe 2 or 3 hours into it. I will say, when you get in there, what you see is what you get. When you've played the first probably couple of levels of the game, that's the rotation. And you might find a couple of modifiers along the way that change based on your weapon. You might unlock a shotgun. You might have some kind of like what do you call it, rail gun that you can use. So the weapons kind of change a little bit, but the core gameplay loop stays the same.
Now, the description says it's a single player, fast paced FPS that brings you directly inside a classic anime. Ooh, baby.
It feels really good and it looks really good. I love what they've done with it. And I think that it just continues this streak of where AAA games start to kind of falter this year. The
Hmm.
indie space is such a vibrant scene of awesome games that are coming, and Mullen Mad Jack is just one more on the pile.
Oh, it's on everything. I could, it says initial release date January 25th, 2024.
Interesting. I haven't looked up the release
Hmm.
dates of like when it was supposed to come out. I know that May 15th is actually the day that the embargo lifted, which I think
Okay.
was their launch day on Steam. But yeah, I've really been enjoying my time with that. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into especially that look of it, like you said, it's like an older anime kind of look, but also the Hotline Miami gameplay. Can't recommend it enough. Really good time.
I just saw him kick a dude into a fan. That was
Yes, there's a whole
awesome.
lot of kicking dudes into fans. Whole lot of that.
Okay, well, I might wish list that. That looks like a fun time, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And then the final thing that I've been playing, I started this morning, but I got into the new season of Diablo 4,
Mm,
which is an interesting season where it's not quite as thematic as the past three seasons. The
hmm.
entire idea of this one is that loot has been reborn. That's the name of the season. And so they've reworked basically the entirety of the way the loot system works in the game, added a new can't remember what the actual name of it's called, but a new way to imbue your weapons with different kinds of traits and things like that. When the systems get deep, you start to lose me a little bit, but I'm getting back in and learning things. And I'm playing it on PC for the first time instead of on Xbox. So through Game
Oh.
Pass on the Xbox app, and it's running flawlessly. So I'm getting into that. Don't have too many thoughts to share right now, but having a good time.
Yeah, I've debated jumping back into Diablo 4 because I've seen people talk about the update, and I want like a group of people to do it with. That's my whole thing. Like solo ain't for me. Like I will get. It's like you. I really do need someone, usually my brother, to
Yeah.
explain to me the systems. Because at one point I was like putting runes in, like moving. I'm like, you're losing me here, right? Like I just want to
Yeah.
put skill points in a tree and smash stuff.
That's exactly where I'm at with it. And if you want to get together and play some Diablo, I'm totally down. But you start to lose me there. And so I'm really pushing myself to like, all right, what are these systems? How do I really get the most bang for my buck? And then like a tip will come across the screen and it's in world tier 3 and world tier 4, you can kill the champion bosses and get some special. And I'm like, can I just play the game, But I rolled a necro. It's a good time, so I'm going to keep chipping away at that. But yeah, if you're in the mood for Diablo 4, now's a good time to go back to it.
Awesome, awesome. I want first before we get to your last game, I want to shout out everyone in the chat hanging out with us. Captain Logan, I see Luke over there silking it. Court Lalon says, "Ooh, that's my comment." The chat went. I have to say, Sam's background is so good.
Thank
It
you.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
a whole bunch of random statues I've accrued through the years, with more on the way, especially with that new Assassin's Creed statue. So
You gonna spend almost $300 to get that Assassin's Creed statue?
I don't know if I'll get it on day one. Typically, the way I do it is I let the statues come out, and then I let everybody have the regret on Mercari, and then just list all of their stuff, and then I'm like, I will grab that for $100 off. Thank you very much, and
Yeah.
yeah, passing that paint on to me.
Great strategy. Great. I love I sell on Macari, and then
Yeah,
they're like, "You sold over $600." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's stuff I bought though. Like it's
yeah,
not. That's not how the money works. I'm not reporting that to the IRS, you know."
yeah, exactly. I'm listing a couple of things this weekend. It's a really good site.
And lastly, Helldivers 2, I see still playing.
Yeah, just chunking away at it. I mean, there was that huge controversy a couple of weeks ago, and now
Ugh,
everybody's back to normal.
that's a
as
good way to put it. Everyone's
as
back
it
to normal.
goes, people get mad, then people aren't mad. It's whatever. So I've been playing that a little bit more. I'm not like into grinding the war bonds and doing the whole thing. It's just one where I sit down, jump in,
Hmm.
have a good time, and yeah. If I had to be pressed to pick a game of the year right now, I think it might be Helldivers 2.
Really,
It's a very good time.
You okay, so this is the camp I'm noticing developing. It's the JRPG players who are like, there's so many game of the year candidates. We're over here like a dragon, rebirth, like we're just
Yeah.
listing off these things. And then everyone that isn't in that camp is like, Helldivers 2 is a really good. Like I've heard Mr. Badbit say this, like it's still like I think his game of the year. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think that, and we've talked about it before, but this year has been so loaded with JRPGs that I'm just not into. Like, I just have not really been into much of anything that's come out this year. Like, Prince of Persia caught my attention in January, but beyond that, I can't really say there's like a ton of stuff that's really caught my eye other than Helldivers 2. So I've been going back playing some older stuff. But if I had to pick a new game that came out that I think is a game of the year, definitely Helldivers.
I assume it'll win some sort of award this year for sure. Just like the longevity that it's had, almost half the year gone now. It's still
It's
going
true.
strong. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I will be quick because there's only been one game I played. The rest of the time is me sitting there being like, "Is Hellblade 2 out yet? Is Hellblade 2 out yet?" Like, I got the nothing's hitting right now because I want Hellblade 2 so bad.
Yeah.
But I did beat Little Kitty Big City.
Now tell me about
I
Little Kitty Big City because I've seen a little bit of talk about this one online. I have not checked it out for myself, but I am definitely interested.
I love Little Kitty Big City. This is
Very
one
cool.
of my favorite games of the year. Like it's so not because it does anything like amazing. Like if you played Untitled Goose Game, it's Untitled Goose Game but with a cat, which just is way more cute and adorable and fun for me. It's only I think if you're not interested in getting all the achievements, you can probably roll credits in 4 to 5 hours, like do everything in the game, and then the rest of the achievements are really just cleanup things. Like you have to get pet by 20 humans, which is like RNG. So basically just stand in the street and hopefully someone like pets you, takes a picture of you or something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really like this game. I think it has some creative puzzles. I think the platforming, the jumping feels really good to navigate the city. It's really enjoyable and it's cute. It's very charming. You get to name your cat at the end, which I think is super adorable.
Very cool.
Of course, I named it after one of my real cats, but I was
As you
like,
do.
yeah, let's. My real cat was watching me play, and then she stood up and then she put her paws on the TV, and I was like, no, no, we're not doing
Yeah.
that. that's
Yeah.
that's an expensive TV there, but yeah, I really liked it. My only concern, or my only issue, I should say, is that I was going for the 100% achievements and one of them glitched.
I hate it when that happens, man. I had one do that a couple of months ago. I forget what game it was, but it was just painful.
Yep. It was you have to destroy 10 bird nests in the game, and I destroyed the 10th and it only said I had 9, but there's a map that shows you where they all are and I had none left, so I was like, all right, it's made in Unity. Like the physics engine can be a little iffy sometimes. I'll look up a YouTube video. I'll go retrace all my steps. I'll look at the ground. Maybe it fell and didn't break. I spent probably an hour retracing everything, like just looking for this, and I was like, it just glitched. So it's kind of spoils my parade. Maybe when they put out a patch, I'll go back to it. But it was one of those things like I'm not replaying the whole game just for this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I want to go back and get some of these achievements that have glitched through the years, which I've had a handful, but it definitely can take away from the experience. I will say it's a game that's caught my eye just because of the art style, and I'm looking for something that's kind of like the low effort, like, yeah, I just need to play a game. Went back to
Hmm.
Heartspace Shipbreaker for like 30 minutes, so that was kind of like the mindset that I'm in as well. But comparing it to a game like Stray, obviously more lighthearted, a little bit easier, like palate cleanser kind of thing, I'm assuming.
Yeah, Stray is definitely more of like this is basically a sandbox where you're like a cat
Yeah.
and puzzles and a few missions here, like go get other animals this thing, or you can jump on birds and steal their feathers and trip humans and steal their food and give it to other, like it's that kind of environment. It is very chill if you only have 30 minutes, even less than that, like, and you just want to play it in small increments, like will still get through the game very quickly. Like you can do a lot of things in 15-30 minutes because despite the title of it saying big city, it's not actually that big of a city.
Ah, we like that. Yeah, I see Luke in the chat talking about Untitled Goose Game, mentioning that. That definitely sounds like it's kind of in that vein. Then,
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
for sure, for sure. Yes, Sam in the chat. Stray is more of a story. Big city. Yep, exactly what I was pointing at. Stray is definitely more. They both have cute, like, oh, you like cats, you'll like this. But Stray definitely tries to hit you more in the feels and tell like a narrative, where this is more like get home, have fun.
yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I've been playing this week, other than getting mad at FIFA and watching TV. I went and saw The Fall Guy this
Oh, how
week.
was that?
I like that. I know it's bombing at the box office, but very for $6. Fantastic film.
Yeah, can't beat that for $6, man.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But we'll get we'll leave the movie talk. We'll get into the news now because we don't have a ton of stories this week, especially compared to last week. But we got some interesting things to talk about. First, story number one: Square Enix is changing their strategy. So, announced during their financial report, which seems everyone's dropping their financial reports in May. I assume the fiscal years are ending. Square Enix has announced they are, quote, shifting to a multi-platform strategy, as described in the yearly report. Quote, for HD titles, they will aggressively pursue a multi platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs, especially in regards to major franchises and AAA titles, including catalog titles. It will build an environment where more customers can enjoy our titles. In addition, it will also devise a platform strategy for SD titles that include not only iOS and Android, but also the possibility of PC launches. Sam, I know you're not the biggest Square Enix guy, but I think this is a pretty good shift in direction for them. We know that some of their games haven't been performing as well. I look at Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, not meeting sales expectations. Square Enix has a history of saying their games don't meet sales expectations, but then sign exclusivity agreements. Xbox often gets ignored. Seems like the tides are changing.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. It's more like almost like a triangle strategy, if you will, of like, trying to go
Great
for all
game.
three of
Great
the
game.
big platforms. I had to mix that in there somehow. I was really thinking through that while you were reading. I also want to call out, why are we calling them HD and SD games and then saying PC? Is that an SD game in the way that they've divided? Weird way to describe this whole setup.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this is a really interesting reflection of where the industry as a whole is going. And I know that I've seen a lot of other people talking about the same thing, but PlayStation going to PC, dropping the ball a little bit on the account thing, but like still going to PC, Xbox putting stuff on PlayStation, Nintendo totally ignoring the trends and doing what they're doing. Like these are the things that I expect to see from the gaming industry. And so Square Enix is kind of following the trend. Um, It'll be interesting to see the long-term results of this in my mind because I saw a post on Threads talking about limited run games allocation of the different platforms that they put out
Hmm.
games for. And so in the long term, yes, we're releasing on Xbox, but we're not doing a physical release over there. We're doing a digital release instead of going all in. Are we going to see stuff like that? Like, how are they going to right size without wasting resources on stuff that people aren't going to play? Um, Not to say that Square Enix won't find success on Xbox, but it probably won't be in the same vein as a Switch or a PlayStation. So it'll be interesting to see how they try and figure out that strategy going forward. But more games in more places is the name of the game these days. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I saw an interesting pie chart a few days ago, and it wasn't for Square, it was for Tekken 8 from Bandai.
Mm,
And apparently I think it was 5% of total players are on Xbox. It like they had the tiniest little sliver and then it was PlayStation and then PC, which I was like that shouldn't surprise me, but it kind of did surprise me that Xbox has so little of that games market because I feel like fighting games probably appeal to more people than say JRPG, right? Like Square Enix, they're shifting their strategy. And yes, Xbox is included in that. But for me, I don't think Xbox is really the big, like, oh, this is going to move the needle for us. Like, we're going to make up all the money we spent on development, like Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Like, do we expect those to come over and make a big splash? I don't really think so. For me, when I'm reading this, this is more of a play to get the PC market more involved, which is huge in Japan, and then obviously Switch. Whether Switch 2 is, I like how they refer to it, Nintendo platforms, not just like they
yeah.
clearly know that the Switch 2 is imminent. So it does make it interesting. Like, okay, Nintendo 2 or Nintendo Switch 2, probably more powerful. We're going to be able to put our bigger titles on there. They won't look as good as something running on like a PS5, a high end PC, and Xbox, but we're going to be able to capture more of that market and make back our money.
Yeah. I think that you're right on the money with the Nintendo element there, especially. I do wonder, like we are in the gaming community where anything coming to Xbox that used to be a platform exclusive for PlayStation feels like a massive win, and everybody gets hyped up about things that, like, eventually, if the headline comes out, Final Fantasy VII Remake or the remake trilogy is coming to Xbox, that's going to make headlines. That doesn't always translate to sales numbers. People talk big talk, but like we would talk about it on the show. I'm not buying it because I don't care. Like that's not
Mhm.
my game. So always just wonder how much of the hype around potential Square Enix releases on Xbox is actually going to come to fruition and making a dent in their bottom line. So I think Nintendo is really the safer bet, PC especially as well. But yeah, Xbox is in an interesting spot right now. And so hopefully, as more people put out more games, the community rallies around those and finds things that they might not otherwise have tried because they're out on Xbox. But you can never guarantee that's going to be the case either.
No, I think that's a great point because we've seen other Japanese Japanese games come to the platform and not find that success in sales. I know a small developer, Creative Hearts, has been bringing over their Neptunia series, and they sell like, I don't know, 10,000, 100,000. Like they're not a very big company. So I can only imagine how little they're actually selling on Xbox when those are very niche JRPGs.
Yeah.
So what I think, if Square is trying to like incentivize, get Xbox players more involved, take the Sega route. Maybe throw some of your older titles into Game Pass. Like, I think Yakuza and Persona have really benefited from being in Game Pass, gotten the Xbox users more involved. Not to say they're buying them, at least I hope they're buying some of them, but I do think throw some old Final Fantasy games in Game Pass, and then maybe Rebirth, remake, whenever years down the line when the third one's coming out, right? Like put those one in there. Be like, hey, we know we ignored your platform before. Here's the other ones in Game Pass. Maybe buy the new one when it drops on your platform, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, testing and learning is kind of where a lot of companies are with Xbox right now. And Xbox is testing and learning right now. Immediately, what came to mind is the Pixel remake or the Pixel remasters that we missed out on last year for the
Hmm.
Xbox side. Like, that's a really good opportunity to, for a low relative risk, drop these games on Xbox. I can't imagine that's going to be a big hit to the bottom line to get those ported over and just see what happens and see if people are going to rally around it. Because I think that leaning into the legacy titles is going to make a whole lot of sense. And not just dropping stuff like Exoprimal randomly in Game Pass. Like, I don't think that's going to move the needle for you. So you've got to really go all in if you're going to do a test and learn of, hey, here's all of our stuff. And then if it doesn't pan out and it doesn't make money, then they're going to have to make some hard choices of, do we keep doing this for Xbox or do we go back to what we were doing before?
Hmm.
Um, just maybe without the deals and then throwing stuff at Nintendo and PC. So it's all about listening to the audience, and they've got a lot of learning to do as the Xbox community evolves. And it really does kind of become a Game Pass delivery machine for a lot of people. How do you figure out the best way to make money from that? So that's the big question.
Yeah, and that's I know I've said it before, and I understand everyone has different financial limitations. Like some people, Game Pass is how they afford to play games, right? And I would never say, "Oh, you're ruining gaming," or you should buy games." Like if you can't financially do that, I completely understand. But there are people that have adopted the mindset who could financially buy games that are like, "Well, I'll just wait for it to come to Game Pass," and if it never comes, they're like, oh well, I'm never gonna buy this game, even though there's something they were interested in, something they wanted to play. I'm not saying they're wrong for doing that technically, but I can't help but feel that it does have a negative impact on the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely have a huge impact. And in my mind, I kind of think about it the same way that I thought about Blockbuster back in the day of,
R.I.P.
yeah, exactly. A movie drops in theaters, and then you hold out for a little while because it's going to be out on DVD or VHS or whatever in a couple of months, and you can check it out then. It's the same mindset with the Game Pass game, and admittedly, sometimes it works. Like Immortals of Avium has struggled for the past what,
Hmm.
5 6 months? How long's it been since August? 8? I don't know. But Immortals of Avium has struggled. The company has laid off tons of people. Now it's landing in Game Pass, and I guarantee you next week people are going to be like, "Oh, this game's pretty good." Like, I'm excited people are checking it out, but I'm bummed that people didn't do it earlier. Like, I bought it back in, I think I got it in November on Black Friday, and I played
Hmm.
through it then for a discount. But it's a blend of games are expensive and people don't have a lot of expendable income, and also, hey, these companies made something for a lot of money, and it would be great if they could make that money back. So it's
Hmm.
just an awkward in between of consumer and then empathizing with the developers.
You know what's funny about Immortals of Avium, especially, not to go on a tangent, but when it was in PlayStation Plus, I would see people talk about, you know what, the game's pretty good actually, like it's not too bad, and it dropped on Game Pass today, and every thread I've seen about it is Yeah, this game's pretty mediocre. Like, it's definitely not a very
Interesting.
good game, pretty boring. And I'm like, what's the difference here? Is it like what's going on, guys? It's a good game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good too. I think that that could just be a example of people having different tastes when they get into something. Whenever they're like, low stakes, it's free in Game Pass, I'll give it a shot. Like they don't really have skin in the game. So I don't know. It's an interesting case study.
All right. Well, Square Enix, get triangle strategy on everything as soon as possible. That should be priority numero uno. All right.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Also, calling out Silking it in the chat. Also, time, even if you have the money, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a huge problem for me. Is that I've got expendable income to buy new games. I'm not just going to throw this money at a $70 game every 2 weeks when I know that I have 4 hours some weeks to play games. Maybe. Like I would much rather check out Little Kitty Big City on Game Pass
Let's go.
then drop $70 on whatever the next hot thing is that I'm not going to be able to put 150 hours into. It's the truth.
It's fair, and I think that's actually a big reason why a lot of people don't even subscribe to Game Pass. They just don't have the time for all the games in it.
Yeah, and that's a totally valid point as well. Everybody's got different amounts of time they can spend and different money, and yeah, you got to right size it and figure out a way to make the platform work for them.
Well, let's keep it rolling because Square Enix isn't the only one with their multi-platform strategy, as we've known for quite a few months now. But according to Jez Corden of Windows Central, who I want this known, okay, in case there's any confusion out there on the Twitter sphere or the internet, is not owned by Microsoft. This website is no affiliation with Microsoft. I don't know if you saw this going around today,
I
but
saw it. I
yeah,
saw
it's
it.
very funny. But according to Jez Gordon, the plan is to move Xbox games to other platforms, and the code name internally for this movement is Latitude. Jez says that there is an internal debate whether this is a good idea, but Satya Nadella and CFO Amy Hood are pushing for it to increase margins as they are in all areas of Microsoft. From what Jez understands, more Microsoft owned games slated for PlayStation are already in development. So, what you're saying is Hellblade 2 PS5 edition coming this Christmas.
I mean, you joke, but I think that makes a ton of sense.
Mm,
I think that's just a matter of time. I know I heard Luke talking about that on XEP last week as well. Um, this is an incredibly interesting conversation that I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day once again because we talked about this in what was that, February when the world caught on fire? I forget what
yes,
month it was,
it
whenever
was February.
Xbox.
The business update, I believe, was February. Yeah, yeah.
So it was just a disastrous 2 to 3 weeks of complete and total turmoil. I think that's about the time that I quit Twitter because I was like, nah, I'm tapping out. I'm good. Thank you. But so my perspective on this has evolved a lot over the course of the past couple of months, especially coming off of stuff like the Square Enix story, coming off of PlayStation putting Ghost of Tsushima on PC and investing heavily in that. Put them wherever you want. Let more people play the games. And I think at the end of the day, Microsoft is a big enough company, like we've said before, to subsidize the development of the next generation of Xboxes, keep that ecosystem going, and make money from other places in the meantime. I think that makes a ton of sense. And I would love to see more people playing great games and
Mhm.
helping make those games even better. I mean, even thinking about a game like Halo Infinite, that's the meat of what Xbox's identity is. Not necessarily Infinite, but Halo and Master Chief and Cortana and that whole thing. More people playing that and keeping that love for that series alive, more fans being able to find out that, hey, they turned out, they like this Xbox game that they've never had the chance to play. I'm cool with that. And it's going to end up putting more money back into Xbox to help development of like this new studio we'll talk about in a little while with the Activision side of things. So I'm all in. How are you feeling about the idea of more games? No red lines, as they say.
Yeah, that's what Jez said in his article that there's no red line, nothing's off the table for Microsoft and Xbox when it comes to putting games on other platforms. And for me, from a business standpoint, totally makes sense. I think to get, especially your live service titles, should be priority number one. Like get as many
Mm.
multiplayer, microtransaction filled exclusives over on other platforms ASAP, because then that'll start bringing in new players, start bringing in more revenue, and that will help the business. I would say hold off on the single player exclusives that you like try to bring people to your platform for now. Like maybe the multiplayer is enough to see like to get those margins up to where they need to get Xbox into a healthy revenue stream where they're like, we can just maintain on this. Whether that's what they want to do or not, I have no idea. I just think you lose a lot of face, and you take some bad PR hits with longtime fans if you do come out, especially don't announce anything at the showcase. All right, you guys need some
Oh yeah.
wins right now. But if they came out in June or this summer and was like, Halo's coming to PlayStation, I think that would probably upset quite a few people, even if you understand the business aspect of it. Like, do I think Halo on PlayStation would do well? Yes, I do. I think millions would flood Halo Infinite immediately, but like Master Chief Collection, I think that's $70. I think you're selling millions of copies of that. I think Gears of War, if that collection is true, you throw that over there, millions of copies of that is going to be sold. Like, you could clean up pretty nicely. And I guess it depends. Like, are you going to take that money and reinvest in new IPs for the Xbox ecosystem, or is it just going to be we're fully multi-platform now? The box is optional. I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think
I'm still a little torn on that part, but
Yeah, I think that maybe there's an in between of the timed exclusivity element of, especially thinking about Hellblade and Indiana Jones, because those are top of mind for me. Like, I can't explain why, but those feel like they're going to be eventually games that would potentially be considered to come to PlayStation 5. That just feels right to me because
mhm.
they're narrative driven. Xbox can kind of milk them for that brand, recognition at the beginning. And then, hey, you remember that acclaimed game from Xbox? Now you can play it on PlayStation 5, and everybody roars. The crowd goes wild. Um, I do wonder if that's just me as an Xbox player excited about these games, saying that I would see them selling well, because we see what's happened with a game like Hi-Fi Rush. I know that Captain Logan's talked about the potential for Sea of Thieves to be potentially elevated in terms of sales just based on people wanting those skins in the existing Sea of Thieves community. It's kind of hard to say what's net new players coming into the world versus people that are just there for the, going on a different platform kind of thing. Um, so I don't really know, how much it would net out, but inevitably you would sell more. You would have more people in your live service games, especially like you said. And more is better than less the last time I checked economics. So I wouldn't be surprised if they started moving in that direction. It makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I know. While we've mentioned Hi-Fi Rush didn't exactly blow up in PlayStation, and Pentiment certainly didn't move any needles. I don't think on any platform. Sea of Thieves did find success on PlayStation. I think it was the fourth best-selling title of last month, if I remember correctly, and I came out at the end of the month. But I think that might take into account pre-orders. I think Grounded is doing decent as well, from what I remember reading, but. I I do think live service is the play right now. Like, from what I'm seeing from that, like, that your single player games didn't move the needle, but the live service ones, people are eager to play with their friends, especially as we know the younger generation, they love gaming as a social aspect. Like, they're not interested in spending $70 every time a big AAA game comes out. They want something they can buy once, invest money into, have good times with friends over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the taste of people are changing a whole lot, and Microsoft's trying to follow that trend. So if they can make it work, more power to them. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But let's bring back Bleeding Edge. All right. Sea of Thieves
Oh
was
yeah,
number one in April. Okay. I stand corrected. See? Killing it.
very cool. I still wonder, like, are people going back and rebuying it, or is that like net new people that are hyped about Sea of Thieves? Because like I just question how much of that is like people that are in the PlayStation side that are waiting to get in on Sea of Thieves, or if it's those existing players that are like trying to get stuff or switching over or whatever. I'm sure that it's probably a mix of both, but either way, number one's number one, right? So I mean, you're making your money back, right?
I joked. I was like, Xbox has no games until they can all suddenly come to your platform. Then you guys want them all
Yeah.
right?
Then you want them all. Then you want them
But
all.
no, like, if Starfield goes over, I think that's selling millions of copies easily. Like, I know
Yeah.
everyone, it's the cool thing to hate on Starfield these days. I didn't mention what we were playing, but I played like 10 minutes of that update to see, like, what's it feel like at 60? What's it feel like uncapped? Don't do uncapped for I have
Oh yeah.
VR. I have VRR, right? Like, I got a nice OLED back here. I'm running around the city. That is dropping and stuttering. So I'm like, oh, this looks horrible. 60, 40, great, beautiful, love it.
Yeah,
So
I know that in the patch notes they said they recommended not running it at uncapped with something disabled. I forget what the thing was, and in my mind I said, if you're giving me a note and a disclaimer in
mhm.
your patch notes, that's when I know that's going to run like trash. So if you would hope to get higher than 60, I suppose that's out of the question then.
Uncapped was beautiful in an enclosed, like I was in the lodge, and
Yeah.
like because it's just that area, beautiful. As soon as I walked into the city, I was like, this is unplayable.
Yeah, if you really want to showcase Starfield, go to one of the barren moon planets, put that thing on uncapped, and you're like, man, the Xbox Series X might be hitting that 120. We're
Mm.
finally there. This is it.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see what games get announced coming to PlayStation. But we got some game announcements for Xbox Game Pass, and it's a pretty big drop for the second half of May. So available right now, you got Chance of Sonar for cloud, console, and PC. That made Sam Heaney over on No Limits, our PlayStation show, his top 5 last year. So
Wow.
maybe check that one out. EA Sports NFL 24 for cloud, Immortals of Avium for cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. May 21st, you get Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 for cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. May 23rd, you get Galacticare for cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S, and Haunty for cloud, console, PC. May 28th, Moving Out 2 for cloud, console, PC. May 30th, Humanity for cloud, console, PC, and Lords of the Fallen for cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. January 4th, you get Firework for PC and Rolling Hills for cloud, console, and PC. Sam, which of these is piquing your interest there?
First, you said January 4th
Oh,
instead of
did I
June.
really?
And I was like, man, they are really planning these way ahead of time for
Okay,
that.
so
No,
whew,
you're good.
called
I'm
me
just
out.
yeah, I'm just messing with you. But obviously the two that are standing out to Spam's message in the chat. Yeah, Hellblade 2 is about to drop. Very excited for that one. That's a day one. I put on threads that I might go back and check out the original Hellblade just to kind of like refresh myself. So we'll see if I get to that going back to the time comment we made earlier. Like, yeah,
I,
a little crunch for time right now, but it's
I,
only like what, 6 hours, 7 hours?
listen, if you've played through, I beat it in 4.5 hours earlier this year.
Yeah, I
So
might have to give it a shot. I definitely want to refresh myself. They did put out a 5 minute video on the Xbox channel that's like a recap, so I might go back and watch that too. But Hellblade 2 for me, and then admittedly, once again, we were talking about the game of waiting for Game Pass drops. Lords of the Fallen making the list once again. It's been on my list to pick up and buy. I
mhm.
swear it has. Never got around to buying it, and now it's on Game Pass. I'm like, well, I guess it kind of worked out in my favor in that regard. So definitely checking out Lords of the Fallen, and I know the fiance is going to check that one out too. She's super into Souls like, so we'll add that to the list.
Yeah, I did see that the developers of Lords of the Fallen did have to lay off some more people this week. I think that 30 more people got laid off, unfortunately. So glad to see they're getting some sort of money coming in from that Game Pass deal. But I've heard this game has improved quite a bit since it launched. I know when it came out, it was a little buggy, had some issues, but I think they even added like a new mode to it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think they have a roguelike mode that just dropped as well.
Yeah.
But they've added, it was super impressive because their social feeds have been filled with these graphics that show like what the update is bringing. And it literally is just about as busy as a battle pass. Like it is packed with content. And they've kept putting more and more and more into this game. So they definitely deserve the love for continuing to support it. I don't know what the player counts are like. I don't know what the sales were like, but it was a pretty well received reboot of a game that was
Mhm.
generally not well received. So it's nice to see it coming back and kind of making a little bit of a wave here. So glad to see it on Game Pass. By the way, shout out to Humanity, a game that almost got me to buy a PlayStation 5 coming to Xbox.
Really?
So I'm definitely in on that too.
I know Sam again over at No Limits loved that game. I think he got the platinum. I think Bree also loved it over there, so that's one to keep an eye on. I think it reviewed pretty well too. So, not my type of game, but I do know that's a big one for especially for the indie lovers out there.
Hmm.
For me, obviously, Senua Saga Hellblade 2 is my most anticipated game this year. So much so that it's crippled my ability to find any enjoyment in video games this entire week. So I'm sitting here waiting for it to drop. I genuinely cannot wait. I know there was some fake controversy because the review embargo is up the exact same time the game launches, and now I just got to say that literally doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
Okay, like have been plenty of games that come out have received really good reviews at the same time that the game drops. I think of Kane Bridge of Spirits came out very well received. Review embargo was exactly when the game dropped. Like these the embargoes are just sometimes they're before, sometimes they're after, sometimes at the same time. Like it's really up to the company. Like I don't really know why people have so much stock in it.
Yeah, I think that if my gut is telling me anything, it's probably the spoiler, like don't share anything with the game, because if it comes out and it's like the final boss is therapy, and then like what you like if that's what it ends up, you don't want that out there with all of the you like that one. You don't want that out there with all of the hype and the reviews and stuff. So I think they're probably like, hey, we know it's going to be good. We'll let the reviews drop and then we'll let it ride out. But that's my gut feeling on it.
Yo, the final boss is therapy. Yo, that's killer. That got me real good. That's kind of like when I was playing Remnant 2, and one of the final bosses you fight is cancer. And
Oh
then
yeah.
I spent the rest of the game going, we did it. We beat
We beat
cancer.
cancer. Yeah.
uh, yeah. So no, it again doesn't matter anything. Yeah, if I get spoiled on anything, I will locate the person that spoiled it for me, and you know we'll have some words. All
Yeah.
right.
It's
You'll be
also the
spending the
element.
Patreon money to me.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll reallocate the bail fund very shortly. But David Hot in the chat talking about Hellblade's too short. Spoilers are a thing. I could easily see somebody getting a hold of a review copy and then being like, "Hey, 6 hour game up on YouTube. Watch it in one sitting, no ads." And you're like, "Oh well, don't need to buy that anymore." So I mean, it'll happen on day one either way.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want that happening 3 days before launch for a lot of
Yep.
people.
No, absolutely, absolutely. It is again, review codes I know are in reviewers' hands now. I think they went out 2 days ago, so they had about a week to review the game. Might have been yesterday, but
Mm.
for a 6 to 8 hour experience, I think that's probably it's doable for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do
Yeah,
not have one, for the record. I know we haven't talked about it, but I am not somebody who
I
has been
yeah,
blessed with
yeah,
one.
yeah. I figured you would have told me if you did,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
maybe I don't know you as well as I think you do.
Nah, nah, I tell you all my secrets, dude.
Yeah. All right. Other than that, obviously play Immortals of Avium. Chancellor Sonara gave a shout out. Moving Out too. Didn't know that was even coming out. So a lot of good variety here. But I'll be playing Hellblade 2 for sure.
Very
Other than
nice.
that, let's move on to story number 4. Xbox is a new studio. I'm laughing because
It's the
it's
circle of
depressing.
life.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is the circle of life.
Yeah,
So
reincarnation, you might say.
Xbox owned publisher Activision has announced the formation of a new studio called Elsewhere Entertainment. The new studio will focus on, quote, a narrative based and genre defining AAA franchise. The team is made up of former developers who have worked on games such as The Last of Us, Uncharted, The Witcher, Cyberpunk, Destiny, The Division, and Far Cry. No word on when the game will actually be released. Sam, can you explain to me why you shut down 2 studios or 4 studios? Sorry, shut down and then make one. All right.
I can't explain it. I will say that from what I was reading today, Activision, much like Blizzard, is, or I should say Bethesda, is kind of handled compartmentalized outside of Xbox. So this is something that's been going on for a while. It's not a Xbox decision of like, we got this big pile of money from Tango. Let's open a studio with it. Like they didn't. It's not one of those things. Even though the timing is, as always, impeccable for
Mm-hmm.
communication. Just no one quite like the Xbox team for that kind of thing. Um, so I definitely don't think that it's a reflection of Xbox making big moves. I do want to go on my rant that I think that I've gone on a couple of times of I'm very tired of the expectation getting set too high as soon as a studio is announced to be in existence of saying we're making a AAA game with people
Let
that
them
have
have
worked
it.
on The Last of Us, Uncharted, The Witcher, Cyberpunk, Destiny, The Division, and Far Cry. Okay, you have now set the bar so exponentially high, and then you're going to put out something that is, if it doesn't meet that, then everybody's going to be like, what is the, stop doing this to yourself. You're shooting yourself in the foot with these kind of statements. I hate it.
Not only have they set the bar high by saying these are all the games our developers worked on. We're not telling you like how involved they were. Like they might have just done a few things here and there, but they worked on them on their resumes. They say genre defining AAA franchise. You can't claim a franchise when you haven't even made the game yet. All right, we don't know if the game could suck. You can't say it's a franchise that's going to be a one and done failure. Like, we have no idea. The game could come out bomb. The game come out could be amazing. Certainly what I think everyone roots for, especially with the presumed talent that you're listing here. Like, you seem pretty confident, but I'm with you. I don't particularly like these new studio announcements. Like, hey, we made a new team, and I brought my homies from here, here, and here, and we're gonna kill it. And then 12 months later, they're like, we gotta shut down.
Yeah, I think about Marcus Leto with Disintegration. I think about Cliff Bleszinski with Lawbreakers. Like, these are big names of people that have done a lot of stuff, but like, you can't capture that magic twice. If you can, you're very lucky. And to come out saying, I mean, with this, you might as well say the new studio is going to focus on a narrative-based and genre-defining AAA franchise that's going to sell 50 million copies by the end of the year. Like, let's just go ahead and just own it. You know, we're just going to speak it into existence because that's what we're doing at this point. I don't know, man. It's crazy. I hope the best. I really do. We'll see what they come up with. I know that in the description, they were saying that it feels like it's going to be, or at least people were saying that it feels like it's going to be something that might straddle between games and movies and TV shows. Like, it's going to be going that cross media route potentially. But we'll just have to wait and see what they actually end up working on.
Yeah, I don't expect this feels like we made a studio for a next gen game to me. Like, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm feeling like right now.
Yeah, it's going to be years and years before we see anything, but equally excited that Activision is not just working on Call of Duty. So, I mean, a win is a win. It's cool to see them saying, like, we're doing something brand new. Cool. Not just pumping out COD skins. That's great. Big fan of that.
Mm-hmm. David Hotright says, just come out and say we're throwing crap at the wall. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows? Listen, we got the initiative over there doing God knows what they're doing. Apparently, they're going to show up at the showcase. So I hope Perfect Dark looks awesome, but like AAA or a quad A, I
Yeah,
believe.
quadruple A. Let's quintuple A. Let's just keep it going. You know, let's keep the
The
party going.
first ever sextuple A.
Sextuple A.
All right. That is all the news we have for this week, but we do have some listener questions to round out the episode. So let me pull those up right here. Oh my God. I I often make the mistake of leaving the listener questions in the thread on our Discord, which you can join, link down below, by the way. And then people just chat a ton, and I gotta scroll. I'm like, where
Yeah.
did the questions go? Okay. Ghostly March writes in, so Xbox closes multiple Bethesda studios just to next week announce a new ABK studio. Meanwhile, the initiative is bleeding money with no results. When is enough enough, and when does management change? Is it time to admit they can't manage all of these teams? Will this potentially turn into another Embracer-like situation where they sell awesome studios in a few years after expanding too much?
It's an interesting question with a couple of different tiers. The first thing that comes out to me is that I'm pretty sure last week they confirmed that they, in fact, cannot manage all of these studios. Like, that was pretty much verbatim. So it's time to split up Matt Booty into like 3 different roles and just, you know, divide and conquer a little bit here. I think 3 different roles, that was just a number that came to mind, but like, that makes a ton of sense of one for the Xbox studios, one for the Activision Blizzard studios, one for the Bethesda people, and then they all roll up to fill. Like, that makes a ton of sense to me on paper. I don't know why we have effectively one person that's kind of like in control of the whole thing. But and of course, I know there are more people that trickle down, but effectively one person. The sell-off question. Toys for Bob comes to mind. I mean, they kind of like bought their own. They were kind of like an indentured servitude situation, and they bought their autonomy to do whatever they want, you know? And now they've got a tiki head up on their website talking about potentially a Crash 4 announcement or Crash 5.
Spyro. It was purple. Maybe Spyro.
Yeah, I could be Spyro. So like, there's a lot of stuff they're doing over there. So I think you could definitely see some shifts coming around. But right now, I do think that Microsoft is like, we've got the pieces in place. Stuff is definitely falling in different ways that they might not have expected or that we might not have expected. But I'm sure they're still confident in figuring out the direction they want to go. So the future could look weird, but definitely need more structure at the top to figure out how to manage all of this stuff.
I agree. I'm not Matt Booty's biggest fan. To be frank, and as anyone that's listened to the show for a while knows, I'm not sure how he got the promotion he did when I don't think the 2018 acquisitions, they haven't produced anything yet, right? Like we're now just getting Hellblade 2. Like we've got nothing else. And what we've seen, like Clockwork Revolution looks awesome. Like we these games could be awesome, but they've taken so long to get out. I don't know if we've really managed it. And then the Bethesda situation with Redfall, like there have been stumbling blocks along the way. And I do think I would like to see more executives like more involved as opposed to where it feels like right now you have a bunch of middle managers who Matt calls up. It's like, how's it going? And they're like, it's going all right. It's like, sounds great. And I'll talk to you in
Yeah.
a few months. So, like, obviously, that's not what's happening, but that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like to the outside when Xbox keeps having these mismanagement situations. I don't know if I don't think they're quite as incompetent as Embracer. I think that was a doomed adventure from the start. I don't think they had any plan whatsoever besides we want to make games and we need IP, so let's buy them all. Like that was literally all Embracer cared about. I think Xbox clearly has some sort of strategy in place, whether they can maintain that strategy for more than a year because they keep flip-flopping. Like we're all in on Game Pass. You know, we need sales actually. Yeah, we're gonna just keep buying people to feed game. Like make up your mind, stick with it for a little bit. Let's see what actually comes before you shut down more studios, before anyone talks about selling off studios. I do think if you get to the point where you need to start shutting down, say, teams like Ninja Theory or Double Fine or the 2018 acquisitions, the Xbox Game Studios ones, I think at that point you need to talk to them and be like, what if you just give us some of the money back? You know, like you guys can go off and be free again.
Yeah. I also think thinking back to the Embracer Group situation, it just whenever I think about Embracer Group, I think about THQ Nordic in particular, where it was just like a ton of what I would call bloatware with a little bit of quality to it, like Destroy All Humans. Really great PlayStation 2 game. So glad it got a remake. I've got the second one sitting on my shelf over here.
Mm-hmm.
Are people buying that? Like, is that, are you putting resources in that you're making that money back and then some to be able to fund future opportunities? Thinking about the MX versus ATV games, people are buying those. Those are successful, but is it as successful as you need it to be to make it make sense for the development that's going into it? Just games like that are smaller, and those are just two of the bigger ones that come to mind. I think that Microsoft is, even though their lineup right now is a lot of question marks, like what's Clockwork Revolution really going to be? What are these future state games really going to shape up to be? They're pretty safe bets. Like they feel like things that have potential and that really could be something big.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're continuing to invest in third party stuff in the small, Game Pass gets and things like that to keep people busy in the meantime. But it feels like Microsoft is focusing more on quality as compared to Embracer Group, at least from the way that I see it.
Yeah, and I say this as someone that loves the SpongeBob games Embracer puts out. All right, they're buggy, but they're enjoyable 3D platformers. They're just not up to the AAA quality that Embracer's budgets got up to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next question from Sam Heaney says, now that the dust has somewhat settled, my mind turns to arguably the biggest hill of all that Xbox will have to climb, and one they've struggled with for years. Writing a novel over here, Sam. Hence the massive acquisitions, talent, and its retention. I fear that a number of studios will now fear collaborating too closely with Xbox because the metrics for success are so murky and award winning titles aren't enough to guarantee security. Though people fear for studios like Ninja Theory and Double Fine being closed, I'm almost more concerned about a fleeing of the ship once their next projects are done, particularly as rumors of additional Xbox cuts percolate. Much like Redfall not being the game Austin wanted to make, hence people leaving the studio, I feel there may be some internally lining up as an exit plan to get out before the guillotine potentially has a chance to get them.
I mean, I think that immediate reaction to that would be, I'm sure that there are people that are freaking out because who wouldn't be? I mean, anytime any company has rumors of layoffs or you see layoffs happening, the immediate question in your mind is like, am I going to be the next one? Is my team going to get
Hmm.
cut? And so inevitably people at Xbox within the subsidiaries are going to be thinking about that. But equally, looking at the 10,000 plus layoffs probably at this point, because it was 8,800 as of February. So let's just safely assume that at least two more thousand have been added to that number. Like, where do you go for comfort and safety? Like, yeah, you want to leave Xbox. Sure, I get it, because the writing is on the wall if you want to take it at face value of like smaller teams are getting culled. Um, but, like, do you have the money to go independent? Do you wanna join an indie developer? Is the money still the same? Are you getting paid better than you would be elsewhere because you're staying with Xbox? And the thing that sucks that stands out to me, I was listening to Kinda Funny's interview with the head of Ninja Theory,
Hmm.
and they asked about the, turmoil at Xbox and, like, "Do you have fear about the future of Xbox?" And the guy was like, "I'm just making a game.
Hmm.
I'm focused entirely on bringing this art to life, bringing Hellblade 2 to the finish line. I have been face down, nose down, whatever you want to call it, looking at this game, making it happen." And I think that's probably where a lot of people are that are within the studios doing the work every day. They just want to do the thing they're passionate about, and they don't want to have to worry about marketing the game, figuring out how to make it sell, thinking about the future afterwards, because then they're not able to focus on the love of putting that work into the world, figuring out what that looks like. So it's a really sad situation. I don't think they have anywhere to turn, and I also think they just want to play or focus on making good games that people want to play.
Yeah, I also watched that interview, and obviously he's not gonna come out and say, "Yeah, I think this freaking sucks." Like we're all shaking in our boots that Xbox is gonna close us next, right? Like he's not gonna say that. He gave
Yeah.
a pretty PR answer, but also like a the best he could do in that situation. I It's an interesting one because I do think when you have acquisitions, you have people that are saying, okay, well, I don't really want this, but you're offering me a paycheck. So I'm going to ride it out for a year or two, whatever the retention contract is. And then I'm going to leave. Like I almost think Pete Hines is kind of an example of that, where he didn't seem from emails that we saw too thrilled with working under Microsoft. And so he left. We know the co-founder of Ninja Theory did leave. Nobody knows how long ago. People noticed it recently, but he also left the studio at some point. Shinji Mikami obviously left the studio, and then Tango got shut down. I'm not saying those things are correlated, but I do think there is a concern of people like if they were to buy more studios, right? I think of a studio like a Sobo, which is one like that makes a Plague Tale. Microsoft Flight Simulator is them, like a team that I've always thought makes good sense for Microsoft to want to acquire, even though they didn't make that list that was leaked during the
Yeah.
FTC trial. So maybe that isn't on their radar. Maybe they're good just being partners. But like, if you buy them and then the talent leaves, well, you don't really have the studio you bought anymore. You just have the name. And the name of the studio, while people recognize it and you can attach a brand to that, isn't nearly as good as the creative leads, the directors, the people that actually make the games that you bought the studio for. So it is something that I don't know how they're going to manage, to be honest. Obviously, retention contracts, but once those are up, you can't stop people from being like, I'm out of here. The only thing you can do is try to cultivate a workplace that people want to be in, like show them why they should want to be under Xbox and give them a reason to not fear for their jobs, not want to get out and just take the money and run.
Yeah, I think that your point about the studios and the identity that they have changing because of the turnover, that's one we talked about, or I talked about it myself because I wasn't here last week. But Arcane Austin, thinking about how people that worked on Prey left after Prey, and they started moving
Hmm.
towards the Redfall territory a little bit. Of we're doing a live service game, big push here. They didn't want to make that, so a lot of people left. If you lose those people, you lose the studio, like you said, that made the game originally. And I think that that's a problem with nostalgia as well, where we have a lot of high hopes because of what studios have made before. And then it turns out they're making something totally different because it's a new team. So I think that also translates over to the answer that we were giving here of you want to be able to retain those people, because bringing those people there and keeping them there is what keeps the good stuff coming. And so Microsoft has a big responsibility with that, that I hope they're ready to maintain.
Yeah, I want to say I'm recalling a conversation I read in a Discord. And I want to say it was Silk in it that brought it up about. should people start following individuals and less studios? Like, should you be more excited, like, when you see who's attached to the project as opposed to Naughty Dog's attached to the project? And that was an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are already doing that to some degree for the big names. You know, like if you saw Neil Druckmann or whatever, you're like, ah, I know what he's done. Hideo Kojima, ah, yes, I know what he's
Yeah,
done.
I know to stay away from those.
Yeah, depending on what you're into, you might stay away from them. But I think that we can do that. I just don't think the general public is going to do that. I think that's where you have to kind of like maintain
Hmm. That's true.
that recognition of the studio name because people know like it's thinking about the Call of Duty community. They know when Infinity Ward pops up on the screen, that's going to be a banger Call of Duty. When Treyarch pops up on the screen, that's going to be a banger Call of Duty. When Sledgehammer pops up, they could probably skip it that year. Like that's
I
that's
knew you were
that's
gonna
the
trash on
mindset.
Sledgehammer.
That's the mindset. Not saying that like I like Sledgehammer's games. I think that Modern Warfare 3 was their last thing. That was good. It was just building off of what the last team had done, but it was still good. But that's the way that people think. They don't think about who's at Sledgehammer making games or who's at Treyarch making games. They kind of did with like Vince Zampella back in the day and like those kind of names. But yeah, times have changed, and I think studios need to be able to kind of stand on their own too.
Hmm. Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Well, that is all the questions we have for this episode. So we're gonna wrap it up. Sam, thank you for rejoining me. All right, we got you out of prison. You're
Yeah,
safe. You're home.
yeah. Thank
Phil
you. Thank you.
Spencer never saw it coming.
Never saw it coming. Yeah, he's got to get that black eye healed up before June.
Yeah, before the showcase comes on, his face is just all messed up. I told you. I told you guys.
I went for it, man.
Yeah. All right, Sam. Where can people find you on the internet, my friend?
Yeah, you can find me at JamPackSam everywhere. There is content, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, over on Threads a lot more. They're launching a web app now, so that's exciting. But yeah,
Nice.
I'm enjoying the times. I've been playing some more games. Looking forward to keeping it going this next week. But always right here every Thursday, except for last week. But we're gonna keep it going back in the rotation.
Yes, absolutely. Glad to have you back. You can find me at the Muffin Mon on Twitter, on Threads. Trying to be on Threads a little more. So it's a 1-7 O and 7A. Follow us at Save Game Media on all those platforms to stay up to date with all the latest. And as always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're over on YouTube. It does help us. Until next week, we'll see you. Goodbye.